Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face when you're sleeping.
10 people who got real superpowers after an accident. Superhero stylized movies are one of the most popular types of entertainment known to man. Now, we all love Marvel and DC flicks, don't we? If not, you've probably seen superhero movies or read comic books. Most stories are somewhat familiar. After an accident, the hero wakes up with unexpected abilities. For example, the ability to climb walls, shoot spider webs, and wear a tight and red-blue suit in any weather. These stories seem to be just the product of someone's imagination, but sometimes this can happen in real life too. You'll be surprised to know that some ordinary people actually have some pretty extraordinary powers, all thanks to different accidents that completely changed their lives. So, who are these people with superpowers? Stick around to find out. Number 10. Lei Ersing. For most of her life, Lei Ersing was an athlete who loved NASCAR, a bubbly tomboy who worked on a ranch in remote northwestern Colorado. She had boyfriends and a degree in physical education and zero interest in math or art. Years ago, she was working on her family's farm in Colorado when she fell 40 feet down a ravine, hitting her head several times along the way and damaging her spinal cord. She was unable to remember the details of the accident or much of her life before. She couldn't even recognize her own mother. When Ersing left the hospital, she started creating works of art, though there's no evidence she was artistic before the accident. Her post-accident condition is so rare that even the most esteemed medical professionals and researchers had to conduct appreciable scientific studies and brain scans to ultimately diagnose her with acquired savant syndrome, which creates enhanced cognitive ability in the disciplines of art, physics, literature, and music. Now, the former athlete, who once enjoyed skiing and hockey, spent most of her time in her artist's studio in Laguna Beach, creating black and white Picasso-esque portraits. It's almost as if she became a whole new person. What was interesting about this condition is the ability to hear colors and see music. She was the only woman in the world to have suffered the condition. Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it really works. Number 9. Alonzo Clemens. When Alonzo was 3 years old, he had an accident that left him with a disability that harbored his mental capacity, leaving him with an IQ of 40. It took a while for Alonzo to learn basic things that we all take for granted, like tying your shoes or being able to communicate your needs. But what Alonzo was brilliant at was being able to form a lump of clay into the most amazing masterpieces imaginable. This gift came almost immediately after his accident, and Alonzo has been perfecting his gift ever since. He could mold clay into amazingly detailed animal figures he had never even seen. It was a talent that only a genius could possess. Doctors call people like Alonzo savants. Savants can store information in their memories just as normal individuals do. But unlike most people, they can easily retrieve phenomenal amounts of information in a very narrow range. Savants can be exceptionally skilled in mechanics, mathematics, special relationships, or memorizing dates. At first, Alonzo started his sculptures from looking at photography, which gave them a very two-dimensional look. But Alonzo's work really came to life when he started visiting different animal habitats, like the Denver Zoo, the National Western Stock Show, and local farms. His sculptures began to be more realistic and precise. Alonzo can see a fleeting image on a television screen of any animal, and in less than 20 minutes, sculpt a perfect replica of that animal in three-dimensional accuracy. The wax animal is correct in each and every detail, every fiber and muscle. His world premiere featured 30 of Alonzo's bronze sculptures, portraying the progression from a rough and primitive style to smooth and elegant fine art. Perhaps his greatest work is a sculpture entitled 3 Frolicking Foals. The life-size sculpture took just 3 weeks for Alonzo to create. Number 8. Orlando Sorrell. When Orlando Sorrell was just 10 years old, he was as ordinary can be. He was doing nothing overtly special, but was competent in everything you would expect him to be. Then, one day in 1979, he was playing with his friends when he was hit in the head with a baseball. To be clear, he wasn't wearing a helmet when he was playing, so the baseball hit him square on the left side of his head. He was knocked unconscious, but later got up and continued playing. The accident was followed by a period of him suffering from headaches. When he lost the headaches, Orlando Sorrell gained the ability to perform calendrical calculations with amazing speed and accuracy. That is, give him any date and he'll tell you what day it was. He could bring to mind the exact day of the week for any date after the accident, and could remember the weather for each day since the trauma as well. Even though the past was hazy, he could also recall the most minute daily events. Also, he could recall to a certain degree the weather and what he did since the day of the accident. How cool is that? Following up with these trends, it seems I need to get a blow to the head to unmask hidden artistic or intellectual talents. Don't try this at home. Number 7. Franco Magnani. Can you still remember all the things and details of your childhood days? It's nearly impossible to remember all the things. When 30-something Italian immigrant Franco Magnani arrived in San Francisco in the 1960s, he came down with such a fever to the point that he sometimes became delirious and had seizures. Magnani started to have insanely vivid dreams and memories about his childhood hometown of Pontito, Italy. No one is exactly sure what caused his fevers, especially in combination with his delirium and seizures. This kind of illness can change a person if they're in it for too long in regards to their health. But for Franco Magnani, it changed his mind. The man hadn't visited his hometown in more than 30 years, but his dreams were intense and filled with detail, as if his seizures had somehow surfaced a bunch of old image files off his brain's hard drive, perfectly intact. Magnani became so engulfed by the memories that he started to draw and eventually paint them. When he recovered, he found that he had developed an exceptional ability to draw anything from memory, especially scenes from his early life in Pontito. He eventually got so good at it that he's now known as the memory artist. And we're not using the word memory as an exaggeration. Magnani produced his best paintings without ever going back to the village after he moved to San Francisco, and they still look quite realistic. Number 6. Jason Paget. Much like in comic books, there are many ways to gain a superpower in real life, but there's only one documented case in history where that superpower came after getting beaten up. In this case, via a mugging, and his name is Jason Paget. The year was 2002, and Jason Paget was having the time of his life while out with friends. When he was leaving for home, Paget was attacked and robbed by two men outside a karaoke bar. Paget staggered to a hospital across the street where he was told he had a concussion and a bleeding kidney, thanks to a punch to the gut. But once home, Paget's behavior changed quickly and dramatically. He had sustained a traumatic brain injury, which can bring on obsessive-compulsive disorders, OCD. In Jason's case, he became increasingly afraid of the outside world and would only leave his house to stock up on food. But while Paget was experiencing all these negative consequences from his attack, something incredible was happening too. The way Jason was seeing things changed. Everything that was curved looked like it was slightly pixelated. To Paget, the world essentially looked like a retro video game. Seeing such a radically different view of his surroundings evoked conflicting emotions. Because of these visions, Paget began to think about huge questions in relation to mathematics and physics. Given his hermit-like existence at that time, the internet became a valuable source of information to him as he read extensively about mathematics online. He stumbled across a webpage about fractals which struck a chord with him. It's a difficult mathematical concept which, put at its most basic, can be likened to a snowflake. When you zoom in, you will see that it's made up of smaller snowflakes connected together. Zoom in again, and those snowflakes are made of smaller snowflakes, and so on until infinity. Paget believed his drawings held the key to the universe, and were so important that he needed to take them everywhere with him. Number 5. Jim Carrillo. When Jim Carrillo was 14 years old, a car accident destroyed his life. His mother was killed in the crash, and Jim lapsed into a coma. Due to extensive brain injuries he'd suffered, the doctors didn't think he'd live more than a few weeks. But against all odds, he did survive. After 6 weeks, he woke up from the coma and began the long, slow process of physical rehabilitation. Soon, he was able to return to school, and that's when he realized that he would never be a normal teenager again. Before the accident, Carrillo had no interest in math. Afterward, it became as easy as breathing. Without studying, he aced his high school geometry mastery test. Then he skipped up to calculus, passing every exam with ease. Memorizing any number was as simple as looking at it. He memorized 200 digits of pi in a little over a day. Beneath every day-to-day activity, numbers were scrolling through Carrillo's head, endless sequences of digits. Number 4. Tony Sequoia. In DC Comics, the character known as Barry Allen was struck by lightning that transformed him into the fastest man alive. But for Tony Sequoia, he had a slightly different reaction when he got hit by a bolt from the blue. Just like Barry Allen though, his strike was very unexpected, because during a thunderstorm, he decided to pull over and call his mother via a payphone. When the conversation was done, the lightning bolt came down, struck the phone, and electrocuted Sequoia. He began to have an insatiable desire to listen to classical piano music, going on to learn how to play on the piano and eventually composing his own masterpieces. This was a startling departure from his love for rock. Number 3. Derek Amato. When it comes to origin stories of superpowers in real life, you could argue that Derek Amato has one of the dumbest, because back in 2006, he was at a friend's party in Denver, Colorado, and he decided to dive headfirst into their pool, which would have been fine if it was deep, yet it wasn't, and so he bashed his head on the bottom of said pool. He then blacked out and woke up in the hospital, disoriented and terrified. It's the kind of accident every parent fears, an accident that leaves most paralyzed, and Derek wasn't immune to the dangers. His head injury left him with massive hearing loss, chronic headaches, and memory problems that still persist to this day. Yet, Derek considers the accident the best thing that's ever happened to him because it also turned him into a musical prodigy. In the days after the accident, Derek began to see moving black and white shapes, a continuous stream of musical notation flowing behind his closed eyelids. Even though Derek had never been musically inclined, he suddenly had the ability to sit down at a piano and play intricate pieces that take most years to perfect. Although he doesn't understand his ability, he says that he's grateful for it every day. And with that, it's now time for today's best pick. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber, so if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it over to us. We might even feature it in a future video. Number 2. Lightning Man. The Lichtenberg figure is a scar formed on a human-like tattoo after they have been struck by lightning. However, that's not the case in this photo. It has been used in several articles online to show what it looks like if you were to get struck by lightning, but it's far from that. The image is simply a model's back covered in makeup paint. It was taken way back in 2003 and later re-uploaded in 2004. Number 1. Tommy Mchugh. This Liverpudlian builder had never picked up an artist's brush, but ever since a near-fatal brain injury, Tommy has been consumed by a powerful compulsion to paint. It was after suffering a stroke in the bathroom that his life took a turn. He would say of that bizarre incident, "I was sitting on the toilet. I suddenly felt an explosion in the left side of my head and ended up on the floor. I think the only thing that kept me conscious was that I didn't want to be found with my pants down. Then the other side of my head went bang. I woke up in the hospital and looked out the window to see the tree was sprouting numbers 3, 6, 9. Then I started talking in rhyme. Not long after this, Mchugh began to constantly and obsessively paint and write. He turned up prodigious amounts of work, with his mind working faster than it ever had before, and with talent and sheer creativity he had never displayed in the past. Those mysterious numbers also continued to pop up everywhere he looked. He could paint 6 to 9 pictures at a time, and since canvases were becoming too costly, he started painting the ceilings and the wallpaper and the floor. Watching all these stories makes me wonder if we all have hidden talents that just need to be activated from our brains. What if we could walk on water? What do you guys think?